Velkara had lived for 900 years. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had watched stars die and new worlds be born. In all that time she had learned one truth above all others: survival belonged to the careful, the patient, and the wise. The bold died young. The reckless died younger. This was why the Surin Collective had endured for so long. Her people did not rush into danger. They watched, they waited, they calculated every risk before taking a single step. It was not cowardice, it was intelligence. It was why the Surin still existed while 100 other species had faded into history. Now stood aboard a human warship, and everything she believed was being tested. The vessel was called the USS Relentless. It was not an impressive ship by galactic standards. The hull was thick but crude. The weapons were powerful but unsophisticated. The engines were loud and inefficient. Any Surin engineer would have laughed at its design, but the Collective had not sent Velkara to study human technology. They had sent her to study humans themselves. The species was young. They had only discovered faster than light travel 3 centuries ago. In galactic terms, they were infants stumbling into a universe they did not understand. Most species at this stage were cautious, humble, eager to learn from their elders. They kept their heads down and tried not to attract attention. Humans were different. They expanded quickly, claimed territory boldly, and spoke to ancient civilizations as if they were equals. They smiled too easily, laughed too loudly, and seemed utterly unaware of how small they were in the grand scheme of things. The Collective found them fascinating and concerning in equal measure. Velkara's mission was simple: observe, record, and report. She was to spend 6 months aboard the Relentless, learning everything she could about human behavior. The Council of Elders wanted to know if these newcomers were a threat, a nuisance, or simply irrelevant. After 3 weeks, Velkara still did not know what to make of them. The ship's captain was a man named Danny Reyes. He was in his 40s with gray at his temples and lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled often. He was calm in a way that Vera found unsettling. Most species that rose to command did so through aggression, dominance, or political cunning. Reyes seemed to lead through something else entirely. His crew respected him not because they feared him, but because they trusted him. His second in command was a woman named Katie Marsh. She was sharp and quick, with a tongue that could cut steel and eyes that missed nothing. Where Reyes was gentle, Marsh was fierce. She protected her crew with the intensity of a mother protecting her children. Velsera had seen her dress down a junior officer for a minor mistake, then spend an hour helping that same officer improve. It was confusing behavior. The rest of the crew was equally strange. They worked hard, but they also played hard. They held competitions in the recreation room, told jokes during meals, and celebrated birthdays with cake and singing. They spoke constantly of their homes, their families, their hopes for the future. They seemed soft, emotional, fragile. Velkara could not understand how such creatures had survived their own planet, let alone reach the stars. She was in the observation lounge recording her notes when the transmission came through. The ship's communication system crackled to life, and a voice filled with static spoke words that made the blood drain from every human face. Nearby, this is New Meridian Colony. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under Attack! Wrath forces have entered orbit. They are bombarding civilian centers. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need help. There are 12,000 people here. We cannot hold out long, please. The message cut off. For a moment there was silence. Velkhara knew about the wrath. Dominion, everyone did. They were conquerors, slavers, and destroyers. They swept through the outer rim, taking what they wanted and burning what they did not. The collective's policy regarding the VR was clear and simple. Avoid them, do not engage, do not provoke, let them pass and count yourself fortunate if they do not notice you. She expected the humans to do the same. New Meridian was not their colony. The people there were not their citizens. There was no strategic value in defending it, no profit in risking their ship. The rational choice was obvious. Captain Ray stood from his chair. Helm, he said, his voice steady and certain. Set a course for New Meridian, maximum speed. Velkhara felt her body go cold. Captain, she said, stepping forward before she could stop herself, you cannot be serious. Veth have at least 7 warships in that system. Your vessel is alone. You would be throwing away your crew's lives for strangers. Reyes looked at her. His expression was not angry or defensive. It was simply calm, patient, as if he were explaining something very simple to a child who could not understand. Those people sent a distress call, he said. They asked for help. Many people ask for help. That does not mean you are obligated to provide it. The risk is too great. The odds are too poor. Any rational analysis would tell you to ignore that signal and continue on your original course. The captain smiled. It was a small, sad smile that made Velura feel like she had missed something important. That's the difference between us, I suppose, he said. You see a calculation. I see people who are scared and alone and hoping someone will come. I'm not going to let them down. He turned back to his crew. All hands, this is the captain. We have received a distress call from New Meridian Colony. They are under attack by Wrath forces. We are going to help them. I won't lie to you, this will be dangerous. Some of us may not make it home, but those people have no one else. They're counting on someone to show up. He paused. Today we're that someone. Battle stations. The ship erupted into motion. Alarm sounded. Crew members ran to their posts. The energy in the air changed from casual routine to focused intensity, and through it all Velkhara stood frozen, watching these strange, foolish, impossible creatures prepared to die for people they had never met. She did not understand them. She was beginning to think she never would, but deep in her ancient heart, buried beneath 900 years of careful wisdom, something stirred, something that felt almost like shame. She pushed it aside and began recording her observations. The humans were going to war. The USS Relentless tore through space at speeds that made its hull groan and its engines scream. They had 6 hours before they reached New Meridian, 6 hours for the crew to prepare for a battle that should have been impossible. Velkhara walked through the ship like a ghost, watching everything, understanding nothing. She expected to find fear. She expected to see crew members crying, praying, or hiding in their quarters. She expected the kind of panic that gripped any rational species facing certain death. Instead, she found something far more disturbing. In the armory, Lieutenant Chris Donovan was checking weapons with his Marines. He was a big man with broad shoulders and hands that looked like They could crush stone, scars covered. His arms, souvenirs from a dozen battles. He should have been terrified. His unit was small, barely 40 soldiers. And they were about to face the Wrath, who were known throughout the galaxy as the most brutal fighters in existence. But Donovan was laughing. He told jokes. As he handed out rifles, he teased his soldiers about their aim, their courage. Their love lives, they teased him back. Someone made a comment about his age, and he threw an empty magazine at them. Grinning like a boy, Velsera watched them and felt a chill run down her spine. "Lieutenant," she said, stepping into the room, "do you understand what you are about to face?" Donovan looked up. His eyes were kind, but there was something behind them, something hard and cold and utterly unafraid. "The Wrath," he said. "Yeah, I know who they are." "Then you know your chances of survival are extremely small." He shrugged. "Probably, but those colonists don't have any chance at all if we don't show up, so here we are. That is not logical. You gain nothing from this sacrifice." Donovan was quiet for a moment, then he set down the rifle he was holding and walked toward her. He was not threatening, he was not angry. He was simply present, solid, real. "Let me tell you something about humans," he said. "We're not like you. We don't live for 900 years. Most of us are lucky to see 80. Every day we have is borrowed time, so we don't sit around calculating risks and measuring outcomes. We do what feels right, and right now what feels right is going to save those people." He smiled and it reached his eyes. "Besides, the Veth have never fought us before. Maybe they're in for a surprise." He turned back to his work and Vera left. Without another word, she found inside Amy Lau in the targeting control room. Liu was young, barely 22 years old, with dark hair pulled back in a tight braid, and fingers that danced across her console like they were playing an instrument. She was humming a song, an old Earth song about sailing ships and distant shores. Inanta said, "Are you not afraid?" Liu looked up. Her eyes were bright and clear without a trace of tears. "Sure I am," she said. "Only a fool wouldn't be afraid, but fear doesn't mean you stop. Fear just means you keep going anyway." "Why?" The young woman tilted her head, considering the question. "Because someone has to," she said simply. "Those people on New Meridian have kids, families, dreams. They woke up this morning thinking it was going to be a normal day, and now they're hiding in bunkers while bombs fall on their homes. If we don't help them, who will?" She turned back to her console and resumed her work. "My grandmother used to tell me stories," she continued, not looking up. "Stories about the old days on Earth, about firefighters who ran into burning buildings, about soldiers who covered grenades with their bodies, about ordinary people who did extraordinary things because someone needed help." She smiled softly. She said that was what made us human, not our intelligence or our tools, our willingness to sacrifice for each other. Velkara did not respond. She did not know how. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Pete Vasquez was performing miracles. He was a short man with thick arms and oil-stained hands, and he had not slept in 20 hours. His team worked around him and controlled chaos, rerouting power, reinforcing shields, squeezing every last drop of energy from systems that were never designed for this kind of stress. "Chief," one of his engineers called out, "the port conduit is overheating. If we keep pushing like this, we'll blow out the whole grid." Vasquez wiped sweat from his Forehead, then cool it down with prayer and good intentions, because we're not slowing down. Those people need us. Yesterday, he saw Velkara watching from the doorway and nodded at her. You think we're crazy? He said. It was not a question. I think you are going to die. She replied, maybe. He turned back to his work, but not today. Today we're going to show up, guns blazing, and pull those people out of hell, and if we die doing it, well, he shrugged. There are worse ways to go. Velsera climbed to the bridge just as Captain Reyes was about to address the crew one final time. Shipwide communication system hummed to life, and his voice filled every corridor, every room, every heart on the Relentless. This is the captain, he said. In a few hours we're going to enter combat against a superior force. The Vrath outnumber us, outgun us, and have every tactical advantage. By any reasonable standard, we should turn around and go home. He paused. But we're not going to do that, because somewhere down on that planet there's a kid hiding under a table, wondering if anyone is coming to save them. There's a mother holding her children, praying for a miracle. There's an old man who spent his whole life building a farm, watching it burn and hoping against hope that someone somewhere gives a damn. His voice grew stronger. We give a damn. That's who we are. That's what we do. We don't abandon people. We don't leave them behind. We show up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. He took a breath. I won't promise you we'll all make it home. I won't promise you this will be easy, but I will promise you this: when we're done, those people will know they weren't alone. They'll know that someone came, and that matters. It matters more than anything. Commander Marsh stood beside him, her eyes shining with something that might have been tears. All stations report ready, Captain, she said quietly. Reyes nodded. Then let's go save some lives. The USS Relentless hurtled toward New Meridian, carrying 200 souls who had chosen hope over fear, duty over safety, strangers over themselves. And Valkyra, for the first time in 900 years, did not know what the future held. She only knew that she was witnessing something she had never seen before, something that terrified her more than any weapon ever could. The USS Relentless dropped out of faster than light travel into a nightmare. Velkara stood at the back of the bridge, her hands gripping the railing so tightly her knuckles turned white. Through the main view screen she saw a New Meridian hanging in the void. Like a wounded animal, fires burned across its surface. Smoke rose from what had once been cities, encircling above it like vultures. 7 Vrath warships rained death upon the helpless colony. Below, the ships were massive, each one 3 times the size of the Relentless. Their hulls were black and jagged, covered in spikes and weapons arrays. They looked like creatures from a dark dream, designed to inspire terror as much as destruction. A transmission cut through the bridge speakers. The voice that spoke was deep, rough, and utterly bored. Unknown vessel, this is Warlord. Taxis of the Vrath Dominion, you have entered a combat zone. Leave now and you will be permitted to live. Interfere and you will burn with the rest. Velkar had seen recordings of Thaxis. He was ancient even by Vra standards. Conqueror who had destroyed hundreds of worlds across his long career. He collected the skulls of his enemies and displayed them in his throne room. He was feared across the galaxy, a monster who had never known defeat. Captain Reyes stood in the center of the bridge, his uniform torn from the rough transition out of faster than light, his face calm as still water, warlord taxis. He said, "This is Captain Danny Reyes of the USS Relentless. We've come for the colonists. Stand down and withdraw, and no one else needs to die today." Laughter filled the bridge. It was not a pleasant sound, brave words from a single ship. Thaxis said, "You humans are amusing. I will enjoy adding your skull to my collection." Reyes looked at his crew. They looked back at him. Something passed between them, something that needed no words. "We're coming through." The captain said, "Helm, take us in. All weapons fire at will." The Relentless surged forward. What happened next would haunt Velcara for the rest of her life. The human ship did not try to stay at range. It did not attempt to pick off enemies from a safe distance. It accelerated directly into the heart of the Vrakath formation, weapons blazing, shields flashing under the assault of 7 warships firing at once. Bridge shook violently, sparks flew from damaged consoles, alarms screamed in every direction, and through it all, the crew worked with a focus and intensity that seemed almost inhuman. In Lou's fingers flew across her targeting console. She called out coordinates in a voice that never wavered, threading missiles through gaps in enemy armor that should have been impossible to hit. She achieved firing solutions in seconds that would have taken a Surin computer hours to calculate. Target 3. Engines disabled, she announced. Target 5 weapons array destroyed. Target 1 hull breach on decks 4 through 7. Commander Marsh coordinated damage control with ruthless efficiency. When a fire broke out in the secondary cargo bay, she directed teams to contain it in minutes. When a console exploded and killed its operator, she pulled the body aside and took over the station herself. The Relentless took hit after hit. Sections of the hull peeled away. Atmosphere vented into space. Crew members died at their posts there. Screams cut short by the cold vacuum of the void, and still the ship kept fighting. In the depths of the vessel, Lieutenant Donovan led his Marines into boarding pods. The small craft launched from the Relentless like angry wasps, crossing the gap between ships in seconds, punching through the hull of a Vrath destroyer with explosive force. The Marines poured into the enemy vessel, rifles blazing. The corridors were dark and filled with smoke, but they did not hesitate. They moved like a single organism, covering each other, advancing step by step through a maze of death. The Vrath were fierce fighters, but they had never faced anything like this. They expected their enemies to break and run. They expected fear and surrender. Instead, they found humans who smiled as they fought, who laughed in the face of death, who refused to stop no matter how many wounds they took. Donovan took a blade to his shoulder. He grunted, pulled it out, and shot the Vrakath who had stabbed him 3 times in the chest. "Push forward," he ordered, blood running down his arm. "We take their bridge, we take their ship." They took the bridge back. On the Relentless, Chief Vasquez worked miracles in the engine room. A direct hit had destroyed the primary power coupling, leaving the ship running on backups. He should have called for a retreat. The damage was too severe. Systems were failing. Instead, he grabbed a welding torch and crawled into the burning wreckage. "Vasquez, get out of there," someone shouted. "The whole section could blow." "Then it blows," he shouted back, "but not until I fix this coupling." He fixed it on the bridge. Captain Reyes bled from a wound on his forehead. Debris had struck him during an explosion, but he had refused medical attention. He stood in the center of the chaos, calm as always, directing his crew through the impossible battle. Wrath Destroyer lined up a killing shot, its main cannon powered up, ready to deliver the blow that would end the Relentless forever, Chief Reyes said into his communicator. I need everything you've got. Now, Captain, if I push the engines any harder, they'll tear themselves apart. Then let them tear. Just give me 5 more seconds of thrust. Vasquez did not argue. He overloaded the engines, pushing them past every safety limit, past every design specification, past everything they were ever meant to do. Relentless surged forward in a maneuver that should have been impossible. The killing shot passed through empty space, where the ship had been a heartbeat before, and suddenly the human vessel was behind the Wrath Destroyer, its weapons pointed directly at the enemy's unprotected rear. Fire, Reyes said. The destroyer exploded. One by one the Wrath ships fell. The one captured by Donovan's Marines turned its weapons on its own fleet. Leiu's missiles found critical systems with impossible accuracy. The Relentless, burning and broken, refused to die. And in the command center of the Veith flagship, Warlord Taxis watched his fleet crumble and asked a question that echoed through the void. What are you? Captain Reyes did not answer. He did not need to. The last Veth ship turned and fled into the darkness, leaving New Meridian behind. The battle was over. The humans had won. Velsera sank to her knees on the damaged bridge, surrounded by smoke and blood. And victory, she was shaking. Her ancient body trembled with something she had not felt in centuries. Around her, the surviving crew members embraced each other. Some cried, some laughed, some simply stood in silence, staring at the wounded planet they had saved. And Velkara understood at last why the stars would learn to dread these impossible creatures. It was not their weapons. It was not their ships. It was not their technology or their numbers or their strength. It was their hearts, hearts that would not stop, hearts that would not bend, hearts that burned with a fire no force in the universe could extinguish. She had witnessed humanity charge into battle, and she would never be the same. The battle was over, but victory had left wounds that would never fully heal. Velsera walked through the USS Relentless like a spirit moving through a graveyard. The ship was dying. Half its systems had failed. Entire sections were open to space, sealed off by emergency bulkheads that groaned under the pressure. The lights flickered constantly, casting strange shadows on walls that were scorched and cracked and covered in blood. And everywhere she went, she found humans picking up the pieces. In the medical bay, doctors and nurses worked through exhaustion to save the wounded. There were not enough beds. There were not enough supplies. There were too many broken bodies and not enough hands to heal them. A young man lay on a stretcher in the corridor, waiting his turn. His legs were gone below the knee, lost to an explosion that had torn through his station during the battle. He should have been screaming. He should have been crying. Instead, he was holding the hand of another wounded sailor, a woman with burns covering half her face, telling her jokes to keep her calm. Velsera stopped and stared. The man noticed her watching and smiled. It was a real smile, warm and gentle, as if he had not just lost his legs. "Hey," he said. You're the alien observer, right? Velkara, she nodded, not trusting her. Voice, did we do it? He asked. Did we save them? Yes, she managed. The colonists are safe. His smile grew wider, and tears appeared in his eyes. Good, he whispered. That's good. That's all that matters. She moved on before she could start crying herself. In the corridors, crew members worked together to clear debris and restore power. They moved slowly, weighed down by grief and exhaustion, but they did not stop. They could not stop. There were still people trapped in damaged sections. There were still fires to put out. There was still work to do. Velkara found Commander Marsh sitting alone in a maintenance cove, her back against the wall, her eyes staring at nothing. In her hands was a data pad. On its screen was a list of names, the dead, 47 of them, men and women who had woken up that morning as living, breathing people with hopes and dreams and futures. Now they were just names on a list, their stories cut short, their potential forever unfulfilled. Marsh looked up as Velkara approached. Her eyes were red, but no tears fell. She had cried already. She had nothing left. Commander, Velkara said quietly, I am sorry. Marsh laughed. It was a broken sound, hollow and sad. Sorry, she repeated. Yeah, me too. She looked back at the list. 17 of them were under 25 kids, basically. They signed up to explore the stars, to see new worlds, to have adventures. She shook her head. And they died in a corridor fire on a ship that should have never taken this fight. Then why did you, Velkara asked, why did any of you agree to this? Marsh was quiet for a long moment. Because they asked, she finally said. Those colonists sent a message and we heard it, and we couldn't just not answer. We couldn't just fly away and pretend we didn't know. She met Velkara's eyes. What kind of people would we be if we did that? Velkara had no answer. In the cargo bay that had been converted into a temporary morgue, the surviving crew gathered to honor their dead. It was not a formal ceremony. There was no time for that. No energy for speeches and rituals. Instead, people simply came and stood together, shoulder to shoulder, sharing their grief in silence. Lieutenant Donovan stood at the front, his arm in a sling, his face drawn and pale. He had lost 8 Marines in the boarding action, 8 soldiers who had followed him into that enemy ship and never come out. He spoke their names one by one and told a story about each of them. Private Martinez, who had joined the Marines to pay for his sister's education. Private Thompson, who made the worst coffee in the fleet but the best jokes. Sergeant Blair, who had served for 20 years and planned to retire next month. When he was done, he bowed his head and said nothing more. There was nothing more to say. Inlu lit a candle, a real candle, with actual fire, carefully shielded. A small glass container. She set it on a crate and stepped back. For Jenny, she said softly. She was my best friend. She died at her station, keeping the point defense turrets running. She saved 12 lives before the end. Her voice cracked. She was 20 years old. She was supposed to be a bridesmaid at my wedding next year. She did not cry. She just stood there watching the flame dance. Remembering Chief Vasquez found an old recording somewhere in the ship's archives. It was a song from Earth. Something ancient and beautiful about soldiers coming home from war. He played it through the cargo bay speakers, and the crew listened in silence. Some of them hummed along, some of them wept openly, some of them just closed their eyes and let the music wash over them. Captain Reyes stood apart from the group, watching his crew mourn. His face was unreadable, but his eyes were heavy with pain. Velkar approached him slowly. "You think we're mad," he said without turning around. It was the same thing he had said before the battle, and somehow it meant something different now. "No," she replied, "I think I am beginning to understand." He looked at her surprised. "My people believe that survival is the highest virtue," she continued. "We have lived for 1,000,000 years by avoiding risk, by calculating every decision, by never caring about anything more than ourselves." She paused, "and in all that time we have never created anything worth remembering. We have never loved anything enough to die for it. We have never truly lived." She gestured at the gathered crew, at the candle burning for the fallen, at the song filling the air. "This is what living looks like. This is what it means to matter, and I think I have been dead for 900 years without knowing it." Reyes was quiet for a long time. "We're not special," he finally said. "We're just humans. We do what we can with what we have. Sometimes that's enough, sometimes it's not." He sighed. Today it was enough. Tomorrow, who knows? On the surface of New Meridian, 12,000 civilians emerged from their shelters. They looked up at the sky and saw the Relentless hanging in orbit, broken and burning, but still there, still standing guard, still refusing to die. A little girl, no more than 6 years old, tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Mommy," she said, "who saved us?" Her mother knelt down and wrapped her arms around her daughter. "Humans," she said, and her voice was full of wonder. "The humans came." She held her child close and watched the wounded ship limp through the stars. And somewhere in the galaxy, the story began to spread. Humans had come. They had paid a terrible price, and they had won. The Council of Elders had gathered in the great chamber of the Surin home world. 20 of the oldest and wisest beings in the collective sat in a perfect circle, their ancient eyes fixed on the small figure standing in the center. Velura had returned home. She looked different now, not physically, of course. Her body was the same as it had been when she left, but something behind her eyes had changed. Something fundamental had shifted in the way she carried herself, the way she spoke, the way she saw the universe. The eldest of the elders, being so old that his name had been forgotten millennia ago, spoke first. "You were sent to observe the humans," he said, "to study their behavior, their capabilities, their threat level. You have spent 6 months among them. Tell us what you have learned." Velura took a breath. She had prepared a report, proper report full of tactical analysis and strategic assessments and calculated projections, the kind of report the Council expected, the kind of report that would help them decide how to handle this new species. She set that report aside. "I have learned," she began, "that we have been wrong about everything." A murmur ran through the chamber. The elders shifted uncomfortably. This was not how intelligence briefings were supposed to begin. "Humans are not the strongest species in the galaxy," Velkara continued. "Their ships are crude. Their technology is primitive. They live for less than a century, and they spend most of that time being weak, vulnerable, and confused by every objective measure. They should be insignificant. They should be a footnote in galactic history, a minor species that rose briefly and faded away." She paused. "But they are none of those things." She told them about the distress call, about Captain Ray is ordering his ship into a battle he had no obligation to fight. About a crew that laughed and joked as they prepared to die, she told them. About the battle itself, about Inanlu threading missiles through impossible gaps, about Lieutenant Donovan leading a boarding party into the heart of an enemy warship with a smile on his face. About Chief Vasquez crawling into burning wreckage to keep the engines running for 5 more seconds. She told them about the aftermath, about a man without legs comforting a woman with burns, about a commander weeping over a list of names, about a little girl asking who had saved her, and when she was done, she looked at the council of elders and said something that none of them had ever expected to hear. I am afraid of them. Silence fell over the chamber. You are afraid, the eldest elder repeated slowly. You who have lived for 900 years, you who have witnessed the fall of empires and the death of stars, you are afraid of these short-lived primitives. Yes, Velkara said, and you should be too. She stepped forward, her voice gaining strength. We have survived for 1,000,000 years by being careful, by calculating risks, by avoiding anything that might threaten our existence. We have watched 100 species rise and fall, and we have always remained because we never gave anyone a reason to come for us. She spread her arms wide. But these humans do not think like us. They do not calculate risks. They do not weigh costs and benefits. When they see someone in need, they do not ask whether helping is logical or profitable or safe. They simply help. They cannot stop themselves. It is woven into their very nature, as deep and fundamental as breathing. Her voice dropped. Do you understand what that means? It means that if we ever hurt someone they care about, if we ever threaten someone they have sworn to protect, they will come for us, and they will not stop. They will not negotiate. They will not be deterred by superior numbers or advanced technology or any force in the universe. She thought of Captain Ray's standing on his burning bridge, blood on his face, calm as death. They will charge into impossible odds with a smile on their lips. They will die by the thousands, the millions, however many it takes, and they will win because they do not know how to stop, because giving up is not in their nature, because they would rather burn to ash than let evil go unanswered. The elders were silent. Some looked angry, some looked scared, some looked like they were seeing the universe clearly for the first time. I watched a single ship destroy a Wrath fleet, Velkara said, a single ship crewed by 200 souls who had nothing to gain and everything to lose. They did it because strangers asked for help. They did it because they believed it was right. She shook her head. We have spent 1,000,000 years being careful, being wise, being safe, and in all that time we have never produced anyone who would do what those humans did. We have never loved anything enough to die for it. We have never believed in anything strongly enough to sacrifice ourselves. Her voice broke. We have survived, but we have not lived, and I think that makes us the poorer species. The eldest elder leaned forward. What do you recommend then? How do we handle this threat? Velkara laughed. It was a sad sound, tired and bitter. They are not a threat to us, she said, not unless we make them one. Humans do not want to conquer. They do not want to dominate. They want to explore, to build, to protect. They are the most dangerous species in the galaxy, but only to those who harm the innocent. She met the elders' eyes. My recommendation is simple. Do not give them a reason to come for us. Do not hurt anyone they might care about. Do not threaten the weak or the helpless or the lost, because if you do they will find out and they will come, and nothing in the universe will save you from what follows. She turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing, she said. When the humans won that battle, when they had every right to be proud, do you know what Captain Reyes said? The elders waited. He said, this is what we do. We show up even when it's hard. He said it like it was obvious, like it was nothing special, like anyone would have done the same. She shook her head. They don't even know how extraordinary they are. They think everyone would charge into impossible battles to save strangers. They think courage and sacrifice and love are normal, universal, expected. She walked toward the door. That is why the stars will learn to dread them, not because they are powerful, not because they are cruel, but because they are good, genuinely, impossibly, terrifyingly good, and they will not rest until the universe is the same. She left the chamber without looking back. Far across the galaxy, the USS Relentless limped toward home. Its hull was scarred, its systems were failing. Nearly a third of its crew lay in cold storage, waiting for proper burial on Earth. But it was still flying, still fighting, still carrying those impossible humans through the endless void. And as the ship crawled through the stars, carrying its cargo of heroes and ghosts, word spread from one end of the galaxy to the other. The humans had come to New Meridian. They had faced impossible odds. They had paid a terrible price, and they had won. In the great halls of ancient civilizations, leaders whispered to each other and wondered what it meant. In the dark spaces between stars, predators reconsidered their hunting grounds. In the hearts of the oppressed and the forgotten, a new hope began to grow. The humans were here, and the universe would never be the same.